I've lived in Florida long enough to know two things can be true at the same time. This state will hand you a $12,000 tax break with one hand and slap you with an insurance bill with the other that makes you question your life choices. 838 people are still moving here every single day. So clearly the love is winning, but barely. Today, I'm laying it all out. Everything I genuinely love about living in Florida and the stuff that makes me want to get in the car and drive north. No filter, no sales pitch, just the real scorecard for 2026. Let's start with what keeps 23.4 million people here and what pulls in 838 more every single day. 4 words: no state income tax. If you're a remote worker or high earner making $150,000 a year from a high-tax state, moving to Florida is an immediate raise, just for changing your zip code. Let me show you the math. On $150,000 in New York, your combined state and city income tax burden runs roughly $12,400 a year. In Florida, that number is zero. You get a $12,400 raise before you unpack a single box. And it doesn't stop at income. Florida has no estate tax and no inheritance tax. For retirees or anyone thinking about generational wealth transfer, this state is a financial fortress. Your money stays in your family instead of going to the state. I also love what this tax structure does to the overall energy here. People moving to Florida to build something, start a business, grow a portfolio, retire on their own terms. There's an entrepreneurial self-starter culture baked into the DNA of this state, and the tax code is the foundation of it. That's love number one. And honestly, for a lot of people, this is where the conversation starts and ends. But it shouldn't, because the state giveth and the state taketh away. Here's what I hate. Florida is the most expensive state in the country for homeowners insurance. That part is not debatable. But the numbers you'll see online range anywhere from $3,800 to over $10,000. And that's because it depends entirely on what you're measuring. So let me give you the truth. According to Florida's own insurance regulator, the statewide average premium, including wind coverage, is currently around $3,800 a year. The national average for comparable coverage runs about $2,500. So the typical Floridian is paying roughly 50% more than the rest of the country. But that statewide average hides a massive gap. If you're buying inland, Tallahassee, Gainesville, Orlando, you might be paying $1,700 to $2,500 a year. That's actually close to the national average. But if you're buying coastal, Fort Lauderdale, Miami-Dade, maybe the Keys, you could be looking at $7,000 to $8,000 or more. That's triple what an inland Florida homeowner pays and 3 times the national average. It's about the same thing, right? So when someone tells you Florida insurance is $10,000 a year, that's not wrong. But it's a coastal, high coverage, high risk number, not what every Floridian pays. And when someone tells you it's not that bad, they're probably quoting an inland zip code. The truth is in the middle, and it depends almost entirely on where you buy and the year the home was built. Now here's where it gets personal, especially if you're a first-time buyer. This usually hits right after you get an offer accepted. You're moving through the loan approval and underwriting, everything looks fine, and then the actual insurance quote comes back. If you're buying coastal, that quote can spike your debt-to-income ratio enough to blow up your financing. I've watched buyers lose their mortgage approval during the underwriting process because the cost of insurance on that specific property literally priced them out of the loan they were already pre-approved for. So here's the move. And this is critical if you're buying in Florida in 2026. Get your insurance quote before you make an offer, not after. Call 3 carriers, get real numbers for the specific property, and build that cost into your budget from day one. If you're buying inland, you might be pleasantly surprised. If you're buying coastal, you need to know what you're walking into before you sign anything. Now, the silver lining, since recent legislative reforms, 17 new insurance companies have entered the Florida market. Some carriers are filing for rate decreases or flat renewals for the first time in years. Citizens, the state's insurer of last resort, is planning to lower rates for 2026 for the first time since 2015. We're seeing a real healing process, but the baseline is still the highest in the nation. And until that changes, this stays firmly in my hate column. If this kind of honest breakdown is what you've been looking for, hit subscribe. We track these insurance shifts, market moves, and policy changes all year long, so you're never the last one to know. All right, let's get back to what I love, because I really do love this part. While the rest of the country is buried in snow every January, I'm complaining that it's only 65 degrees at the beach. We call it the never winter, and once you've lived it, it's hard to go back. This isn't just about comfort. The year-round outdoor lifestyle changes how you live. You're grilling in February. Your kids are out in the pool in October. You can golf, fish, paddleboard, or just sit outside with your morning coffee 350 days a year. There's a mental health benefit to that amount of sunlight and outdoor time that's genuinely hard to quantify. And the never winter drives a tourism economy that actually benefits residents. Florida welcomed a record 143.3 million visitors in 2025. Those tourists aren't just clogging our highways, they're subsidizing our tax base. Every Florida household saves roughly $2,000 a year in state and local taxes because visitors are picking up the tab. So the next time a tourist cuts you off on 95, just remember they're paying for your roads. But, and you knew this was coming, the never winter has a dark side. Here's what I hate about the climate nobody puts in the brochure. Summer. 2024 was the hottest summer in Florida since 1895. And it's not just the heat, it's the humidity. It slows down your body's ability to cool itself, which is why heat waves now kill more people in the U.S. than hurricanes. From June through September, you're basically moving from one air-conditioned box to another. The outdoor lifestyle becomes the sprint to your car from the restaurant door lifestyle. And then there's what the growth has done to our roads. Florida has more toll road mileage than any other state, 734 miles. We've built a world-class highway network, but we've done it by essentially abandoning public transit. In Miami, only 11% of people use transit. Greater Miami alone loses $4 billion a year in economic output just from people sitting in idling cars. If you're relocating and you're used to a 20-minute subway commute, recalibrate. Your daily reality here is a car, a toll transponder, and the emotional resilience to sit in traffic that moves at the speed of an iguana in 40-degree weather. I love this state, but some days the commute home makes me question every life decision I've ever made. Coming up, the thing I most love about Florida homes that nobody seems to know, and the one law that could force you to spend $100,000 on a house you just bought. Love and hate, back to back. Stay with me. Now, here's something I genuinely love about Florida that doesn't get enough credit. You've probably seen this photo. One house standing perfectly intact. 18 neighboring houses built in the 1980s, literally wiped off the map. That's not luck. That's engineering. And it's one of my favorite things about this state. If you're buying in Florida, memorize this number, 2002. After Hurricane Andrew, Florida adopted some of the strictest building codes on the planet. During Hurricane Ian in 2022, the results were definitive. Virtually zero homes built to the post-2002 code suffered wind-related structural failure. The year your house was built isn't just trivia. It's the single best predictor of whether it survives the next major storm and can save you thousands on insurance. I love that Florida looked at a catastrophe and said, never again, and then actually backed it up with engineering. Most states talk about resilience. Florida codified it. If you buy a 2002 home here, you're living in one of the most storm-hardened residential structures in the Western Hemisphere. That gives me genuine peace of mind every hurricane season. But here's where the love turns to hate really fast. It's called the 50% rule. And this is the law I teased before the break. If you buy an older home and it gets damaged, or you want to do a major renovation and the cost exceeds 50% of the building's market value, the law says you must bring the entire structure up to current 2026 codes. That might mean a $100,000 plus bill to elevate a 1970s ranch onto 10-foot stilts. I hate this because it's a financial trap that is displacing long-term residents and forcing what I call gentrification by resilience. The people who can least afford to rebuild are the ones most likely to be living in pre-2002 homes. And this hits differently depending on where you buy. A pre-2002 home in Gainesville faces a very different risk profile than the same era home in Fort Lauderdale or Cape Coral. Florida is not one market, and the 50% rule's impact varies enormously by flood zone, elevation, and county enforcement. Here's one more love, and it's one the people get completely wrong. You've seen the Florida man memes. You think we're all unhinged. But here's the secret. Florida is actually one of the most transparent states in the country. Our public records law, also called the Sunshine Law, makes arrest records, mugshots, and government meetings so accessible that journalists from around the world use it as a 24/7 content farm. It's not that Floridians are crazier than people in Ohio or New York. It's that in Florida, everyone can see the dirty laundry in real time. And that transparency extends to real estate. Property records, tax rolls, code violations, it's all public and it's all searchable. For investors, this is a massive advantage. You can research a property's full history without paying for a third-party report. I love that about this state. One quick market signal before I give you the final verdict. Canadian visitation to Florida dropped 15 to 20% this past year. Over 54% of Canadians who own U.S. property say they're considering selling within the year. If you're a domestic buyer looking at snowbird-heavy markets like Naples, Sarasota, or anywhere on the Gulf Coast, this Canadian sell-off is creating a buying window that hasn't existed in a decade. File that one under an opportunity. If you made it this far, you're either a true Floridian or you're seriously considering the jump. I put together something for you, the Sunshine State Handbook. It's the guide I wish someone had handed me before I made the move. Scan the QR code on the screen or grab the link from the pinned comment below. And drop a comment. What's your biggest love and your biggest hate about Florida? I read them all. So here's my final scorecard. The loves are real. The tax savings are life-changing. The lifestyle is unmatched. The building codes are world-class. And the transparency means you'll never buy blind. The hates are also real. The insurance math ranges from manageable to brutal depending on your zip code. The summer heat is no joke. The traffic will test your sanity. And the 50% rule is a hidden trap that can turn a bargain into a money pit. My verdict, if you're buying post-2002 construction in a reasonable flood zone and your budget accounts for insurance in that specific county, not some statewide average you read online, the love wins. Florida's math is still in your favor. But if you're stretching to afford a pre-2002 home in a coastal flood zone and you haven't priced insurance on that specific property, the hate wins. And you'll feel it every single month. Florida in 2026 isn't a paradise, and it isn't a disaster. It's a high-speed experiment. It's a state for people who are willing to take the good with the bad, the sunsets with the hurricanes, and the tax breaks with the insurance bills. And as 838 people found out today, the love is still winning. Barely. This has been the Florida Real Estate Insider. I am still Tom McNamara. I'll see you in the next one.